Business Takeout presents
The Cocktale Hour with L.A. Wade.
I love that song. I love that song. Welcome. This is the Cocktale Hour, and it's your girl, LA. You know the girl, Cocktails with LA, the Niger Wives of Toronto, big up to Potential Films. And we're going to learn a little bit about what has influenced Potential Films in a little bit. But first, Business Takeout is a not-profit social enterprise, and our mission is to increase Black wealth and empower Black entrepreneurs. And nothing is more empowering than being with a man who runs his own enterprise and who's also Black. You know what I'm saying? So this is our inaugural show, and the Cocktail Hour is kind of like, it's an intimate conversation. You know, when you go into a bar and you meet somebody, whether you're interested in chopping that person, try to get into a relationship, or if you just meet really interesting people, you take a journey through that person's life when you get to know them. And I'm hoping that this cocktail hour will become that type of conversation. You know, I've been interested in a long time in what our desires can tell us about who we think we are and how we show up in life. So here, I would like to welcome Mr. Terry L. Cyrus from Outspoken Media. Welcome, Terry.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Great to be a part of your inaugural cocktail hour. I feel honored and blessed.
Right? It's awesome. And thank you all for taking your time to come in and join us. You know, LA always comes with something. So this is going to be a very inspiring conversation because I want to know, the things that are really, tugging at our heartstrings. Well, first I want to talk a little bit about Outspoken Media. So I know it's a full service marketing company. And I think your tagline talks about connecting brands to creativity. So what does that mean? What does it mean to connect a brand to creativity? Do you have an example?
Yeah, well, first off, we're an entertainment and marketing company. We started back in 2004, and you're right, our tagline is the bridge between brands and creativity. A lot of brands, they have a lot of messaging that they want to get out through their campaigns, through their programming, and you have to be creative in order to do so. So we're able to kind of incorporate our creativity and our expertise to reach a desired target audience. Our area of specialty, I should say, the target audience that we specialize in capturing is multicultural, people who look like us. So we've done that with a number of different clients, HBO, AMC Networks, Entertainment One, so on and so forth. I don't want to bore you with all of the details, but
that is definitely not boring. Let me tell you, I want to know.
Yeah.
Like when I think about the formation of a business, and when you were thinking about the formation of your business, is how you thought of it the way that it is now?
Not at all.
Perfect. It's on the journey. Like, how did you think it would be, and where did it end up, and how did it twist and turn?
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. The name Outspoken came as a result of me and a really close friend of mine, colleague, Bruce George. He created the show Deaf Poetry Jam. Oh. And so Outspoken, it was initially going to be a spoken word magazine, hence the name Outspoken.
I get it.
So that morphed from being what was going to be a publication, Outspoken, to being a conglomerate that allowed me to kind of showcase all of my areas of expertise that I was able to inherit over the years. Way back many moons ago, I don't want to tell my age, but
you look good. You look good. Black don't crack.
I appreciate it. My sister says black don't crack. It doesn't crack, but it may crumble.
Not you. No.
Right. So basically, way back, many moons ago, I wanted to actually just be a manager. So that's what that was the thing that the first thing that I wanted to do as far as career wise. I wanted to be the next, big time manager, whether you're talking Blue Williams or you're talking, the list goes on and on, like all of the big time managers that managed all of these acts of my day, whether you're talking Outkast or this group or that group. And God bless Chris Lighty. He was one of the stalwarts in the management space. So I said, you know what? Those were my benchmarks. Like if I can kind of share the same air as those individuals, I would see that to be success. And then as time went on, I spoke to some people who were managing some really big acts at the time. And they were like, you know what? Management is cool, but, management will drive you to drink. So I said, so right. So initially I started to go from artists to dealing with producers and songwriters because, this colleague of mine who's still doing very well for himself, in the management space, he said, if you work with songwriters and producers, they're more self-contained. So I started doing that. And then as time went on, I went from doing that to consulting. And then the consulting led me to work with a gentleman by the name of Walter Yetnikoff, who used to run Sony. Well, at the time it was CBS Records, but because of him, it's called Sony because he engineered the sale of the company for $2 billion. So, yeah. So from working with him and a number of his colleagues, I said, you know what? I want to be that guy. I want to be the person that's at the not who only has a seat at the table, but the person who's at the head of the table.
Right.
That I'm going to take all of the expertise that I was able to learn from him and his colleagues, and take that same wheel and put the proverbial spokes in that wheel that involve people who look like us.
Right.
So that's what led me to starting my own company in 2004. And even that process in and of itself, like I said, it was initially going to be a number of different things. It was going to be a holding company for, like a publishing arm, if you will. And then it went from that to, more of a consulting company. And then from consulting, it went to more of an entertainment company because we did a film back in 2010, Expendable. And then that led to other marketing opportunities because we were forced to do our own marketing. And then based on, I guess, how well we were able to market our content, then other people started coming to us saying, hey, can you help us market our content?
Right.
So
it's literally like, wow, your whole career was kind of evolving for you.
Right.
It's like the epitome of take the step and the bridge will be there. Absolutely.
Like I tell people all the time, like you have to just be open to the possibilities, and everything that happened for me happened organically. So I didn't have MapQuest. I didn't, you
didn't know where you were going.
I didn't have any of that. I just, I put myself on a path. I knew that entertainment was something that was near and dear to me. Even prior to me discovering what I could find myself doing in entertainment, all I seen was people on camera, people on the radio. I didn't even realize there was a business behind the business of entertainment. So just do a conversation similar to this. I was having a conversation with a young lady.
Man, this is the point. Yes.
Right. So I was having a conversation, and through happen chance, she was telling me that her boyfriend, and this is why the whole thing about management came about, because she's like, yeah, my boyfriend's a manager. And I was like, oh, what do they do? And they was like, oh, they manage their career, they do this. And so in my mind, I was like, you know what? I can do that.
Of course.
So I did like everybody, all of my peers. We went out about everything you know about the music business, about Donald Passman. I read this book, that book. And I just one day, probably about 4 or 5 months later, just started going to showcases and saying, hey, I have a management company, but LA, I really didn't have a management company.
I know those make it till you make it way.
Yeah. I have a management company. At the time, it was Sci Entertainment, which sounds crazy. And because my last name is Cyrus, I said, Sci. I said, okay. I guess it may work. Right.
That's my son's name, Cyrus.
Okay. Good name.
Yeah.
Good name.
My son's first name is Cyrus, and it's very biblical.
Absolutely. And the funny story about that is so when I went into the business and started going to all these different showcases, everybody had these cool nicknames, Puffy, D-Dot,
right.
So on and so forth. I said, I don't have a nickname. So I was like, you know what? My last name is unique. So I would just introduce myself and say, hey, what's up? I'm Cyrus.
That's right.
And, they said, what's your last name? Well, that is my last name. My first name's Terry. So even to this day, if someone refers to me as Cyrus, I'm like, okay, they must know me from the music business.
From back in the day.
Right, from back in the day.
But you know about the Emperor Cyrus, right?
Oh, absolutely. We learned that when I was my daughter's age.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were built for this. And it makes me think about the visionary that you have been since the beginning. Like you were able to see the opportunities before you. And not a lot of people kind of can see those kind of things. Where do you get your vision for how you see the long term in everything that you do?
Like I said, I just allow myself to be open to the possibilities, and I walk in faith. And I try to walk in faith. So realizing that faith is the opposite of fear. Fear is not of God. So I just allow things to present themselves. It's almost like you hear about these rappers who say they don't write their own rhymes. I can relate to that, because when you script things out, you're going to stick to that script. And sometimes what may happen may be beyond the script that you may put on paper.
Right.
So that's what I've done. I guess I would probably call myself, somewhat of an opportunist. as it relates,
that.
right. And what I mean by that, not in a bad way, but in a good way, like whatever opportunity presents itself, I try to make full use of it.
Absolutely.
And I try to offer with my company, I offer those same opportunities. Hey, there's a multitude of opportunities that we can present to our clients. We can present to other people that we do business with. We have a treasure trove of resources. So, one of the things that the same gentleman, Bruce George, that me and him talk about all the time is the, the power as it relates to the position and leverage. So that's very key. So it's all about position and leverage. So you have to put yourself in a position that you can leverage to go from where you are to where you want to go. So luckily for me, I'm in a position that I can leverage, and other people around me can leverage that same position. So I welcome that, so I want people to make full use of the groceries that I have so we can all eat together.
Yes. It brings to mind this quote that I heard that says, to live on purpose is to live with intention. And it sounds like you've been very intentional in everything that you've done.
Absolutely. And that's, the word purpose is so on point. That's the thing. You have to find your purpose. Everybody's purpose is different. My purpose is different from your purpose. Your purpose may be different from someone else's purpose. You have to find your purpose.
Right.
And once you find your purpose, you just allow your purpose to guide you. So whatever is in your spirit, then allow that to guide you. And, as long as you keep God first, it will take you to your rightful destiny.
Absolutely. So it's obviously you're led by spirit.
Absolutely.
You get that. Is that a familial thing? Like it comes from your family, or was it from being cast out of a family and then forced into looking at yourself spiritually?
Well, I, born and raised in the church, Simpson Memorial United Methodist Church in Charleston, West Virginia. I'm a transplant to the New York metropolitan area. I moved here many moons ago. And no matter what you did Saturday night, you was going to church. So I mean, sometimes I got in trouble because I would fall asleep in church.
Of course, you're a child. You're definitely going to fall asleep.
Right.
It's funny that you're saying this because I think about when I asked my son to come to church with me, and how do I get him, and how did you actually transition from religion into relationship? Because I think it's when we get into relationship with God that we start to really understand who we really are.
I think it's all based on that relationship, to your point. So once you understand it, once you form a relationship with God, you don't see it as something that, I'm doing this because my mom's telling me, or this is what I've been taught to do. Like, you realize and understand that, God is here to lead me. And then there's so many things that comes your way. If you have someone to give that to, it makes life easier for you. So now you see that, if I allow something higher than me to guide me on my journey, then the journey becomes a little easier. And then there's going to be plenty of times in which you can't figure things out. You don't know where you're going. Should you go left? Should you go right? And if you have someone else beyond you to guide you in that process, then you see the benefit of having that relationship with God. You see, and then I think once you begin to have those milestones that you're able to accomplish. So for me, early on it was sports, and then I pledged the fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated.
Yes.
And I did that very early on in my tenure at school. So that was another thing that was a milestone for me. And then at some point, I began to think that, well, whatever I set my mind to do, I can do. And I think I can do these things all, in the name of God, if I keep God first. And then I heard that in my household, it was reinforced. My dad sent me a text the other day, read this Bible verse and this, that, and the other. And so from the time I was knee-high to a duck to present day, my dad has always been the driving force in what it is I should do in keeping the word first. So, and then I seen what it did for my parents. They had humble beginnings. My dad grew up in the Depression. My mom was one of 9, and they were poor.
Not poor, po.
They were po. and to the point where my grandmother would say, baby, Santa couldn't come because the river froze. Now, I thought Santa was supposed to fly in, but my grandmother was like, he couldn't get across the river. So you know what you got for Christmas? An apple.
Oh, wow. For real?
Yeah, straight. That not me. That wasn't my reality. That was my mom's reality.
Okay. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
that's sad, Terry.
Right.
That's
And
so
then my
sad.
dad, he grew up in the Depression. He was one of five. And,
Wow.
he said, what was for breakfast? Beans. What was for lunch? Beans. What was for dinner? Beans.
Yeah.
So I was able to like really appreciate what we had. Like we grew up, like my friends thought we were the Huxtables. Like we had the big house and all this. And, I could show you some 1970s pictures with my big, collar looking like Disco Danny Fever,
Afro?
You know what I'm saying? Look, I was looking crazy, but that was the style back then with the green carpet and the white suit.
Okay, pimped out.
So I was able to see from my mom and dad where faith had guided them. So I'm sure I would say that was probably where I first discovered, the power of prayer, by watching how it had manifested in their lives, and then how they continued to share that with me and my siblings. So then as you got older, that became like your foundation.
Right.
So everybody, no matter, as they say, if you raise a child right, he will always come back to, to the place in which he was raised. So I was raised in the church. That was my foundation. So no matter, what my exposure was, as it relates to the business of entertainment or whatever the case may be, and the ebb and flows, the highs and lows, like my foundation, my center was always my relationship with God. And everybody's relationship with God looks different. Like I can't sit there and say that I'm Reverend Ike, but he's my center.
Okay. Yes. I understand that fully, of having that center. But I also know that people, as much as we talk about faith, there are times in our life where I think when I'm hearing you speak, I think about sacrifice, learning it from your parents. And I don't think people really recognize that having faith doesn't mean that everything is going to be a smooth ride, and that much of it is actually overcoming doubt and fear. Mm-hmm. And that's what faith is all about. So in what ways did you have to sacrifice and step out in faith in creating this company?
A lot of time and money. And like I tell people all the time, if you want to start your own company, you're going to sacrifice time, money, or both. I had to sacrifice both. And, I prided myself on not wanting to take any shortcuts. So this was a long, arduous journey. And sometimes on the journey, that's why I said faith is very key, is very vital. It's for me in my development, because there was times in which I didn't know where I was going. Like I tell people all the time, having your own company is like saying, LA, I'm going to give you the task of going to some small one-horse town in Wyoming from New York City. You have to travel there at night with no headlights and no map. Because having your own company, there is no there's no guide, because what may work for me may not work for this person, and so on and so forth. So you have to just put in the time. And that's what I do. I just put in the time. I had to sacrifice, a lot of time, money, and, all of what comes with that. And I had to wrestle with the haters.
Oh, and there are many, I'm sure. With your success, there's many.
All right. Like, the haters still exist. I mean, I turn my haters into my motivators.
But it's also important. Would you say it's important to keep your haters close? Almost like.
Oh, absolutely. Like if I spot a hater, I make sure they get a front row seat. You know what I'm saying? That's me. Because at the end of the day, you can turn a negative into a positive. So someone comes to the equation hating, and you can motivate them through what it is you're doing. Because all a hater's doing really, LA, is they're projecting their insecurity, or they're attempting to project their insecurity onto you.
For sure.
And they're like, okay, well, you can't do that because you're no better than me, and I couldn't start a company. In entertainment, who do you know? At the time, I knew nobody. So it's the who you know business, and I knew absolutely no one. So they were like, man, what's the likelihood? Well, first off, I should say this, LA. I don't think the haters manifested until they begin to see, like, this guy's really doing this. I think initially it was like, oh, yeah, that's cool. He claims he wants to do this. At some point, all right, it'll probably blow over. Right. But then when you started to accomplish, minor milestones, if you will, then the haters started to present themselves. And then initially, it was problematic for me. But then at some point, I began to realize they serve a purpose. Like everything, as I mentioned, God.
Yeah.
Like God allowed this person to present himself or herself for a reason.
Right.
And that reason was to motivate me. And then
Right.
not only motivate me, but to educate them. Hey, I get it. I don't take it personal. You're hating on me because you can't see it for yourself. Someone can't see for you what they can't see for themselves.
They can't see for
And then that same person may come to the realization, you know what? I used to hate on you. You know what? I started my own company in whatever business, whether it's entertainment, whatever, hospitality, who knows, whatever. But, but now I'm living my best life because I sat there and watched you, realizing you were no different than I was. And if you can do it, I can do it. And that's why I always tell people, like, listen, turn your haters into your motivators,
Right.
So that's kind of present day. I literally just had a conversation about this last night.
Oh, really? See, God's here. We're two or more gathered.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's blessed.
Church.
That's blessed. Bringing in the church. Speaking of which, the diversity and representation as part of Outspoken Media is obviously a core value. Was it there from the very beginning, or was this happening as you took the step and then you realized there's a real opportunity here and people need to know this?
Once again, LA, that was something that happened organically. And initially I wanted to, I wanted to do what I seen everyone else doing. And I didn't even really fully understand what it is I was seeing. So I just wanted to be in the game somehow, some way. And then in taking a meeting, I met with a gentleman who used to be the associate general counsel for CBS Incorporated. And then another gentleman, he was the founder and chairman of United Artists Home Entertainment. And one of the things that those two gentlemen shared with me, and I was pitching the project to them, and they said, well, who's your audience? So for me, a lot of times as Black folk, we don't really fully understand our value. We don't really fully understand what expertise we can bring to the table. So we don't want anyone to put us in a box.
Right.
So I said, oh yeah, this project speaks to Black, white, Latino. I was just going down the laundry list because I didn't want to be put in a box.
Right.
And they said, you know what? And it stuck with me. They said, show me someone who doesn't have a specific audience, and I'll show you someone who doesn't have an audience.
Wow.
And
can we take a pause for that one? Because that's the realest shit right there.
Right.
Yeah. Who are you talking to?
Right. So I came in there like I was CBS. Like I could talk to everybody. Like so they was like,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that shit is real. And it makes me think about who do you then choose as your ideal client? Because if you understand your power of reach, do you consider that, or do you believe that you can do all things and anything?
So what it is this. So you come in the room as a subject matter expert and you say more times than not, you're going to be across the table from somebody who doesn't look like you. Right. And they want to message to people who look like us because, we have the largest spending population in the country.
Word.
So, and unfortunately for us, one of the things we have to change is the dollars don't stay in our community.
Right.
And they know that. So they want to figure out how can I export those dollars out of your community elsewhere. And so basically, when I come to the table, like I'm a subject matter expert as a way, so like I understand what it is you want to do and reaching people like us. But then I come to the table, with our message, with some of our concerns, with some of the things we want to see. Like don't just message to us, don't just placate us, involve us. We want to be represented, in programming. We want to be represented in your ad campaigns. We want you to become, ingratiated in our social initiatives and so on and so forth. Because now, as someone who has a seat at the table, I feel like I have to represent us.
Right.
Every aspect of it. So that was something. So to answer your earlier question, it was something that just happened organically, and I began to realize after those conversations and others, like, okay, you know what? I have to really walk in, who I am and what I represent. And then that becomes my area of expertise. And then who better to be at the table, speaking on our behalf than someone who looks like us, someone who comes from our community.
Right.
And then from their standpoint, well, who better to tell us what is of interest to people who look like us than him? So
right.
And I think in business, what you have to have the duality of doing is being able to speak uptown and downtown.
Let me tell you, the W.E. Du Bois is real. The double consciousness, right? He
Absolutely
spoke about double consciousness, and to be successful in the U.S. or pretty much anywhere, if you're melanated, you need to be able to dance within that duality for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So when you were thinking about the historic, so you worked specifically with the historical Black colleges, and you had a really great activation with the career connections. Is that what that was that you were just explaining?
Well, no, well, actually, it was more so that the HBCU outreach came much later.
Okay.
Yeah. So like all of my programming, and like I said, things happen organically. We're going to represent whatever's around us and whatever we represent.
Right.
So even though I was trying to be as mainstream as possible, everything I was doing involved people who look like us.
But was it a hard sell?
Well, not really, because at the end of the day, we as as a multicultural audience, we have for the long standing period of time have been represented in entertainment. So whether you're talking music, where it started for me, and then it moved over to film, and then it moved over to television. I'm an executive producer of diversity content and partnerships for Celebrity Page TV. So, it was a matter of me like understanding, like, lack of a better word, like that's my superpower. Like the very thing that what we were taught is like, oh, you don't want to be put in a box. Don't say Black, don't say this, don't say urban. But then in talking to people who were like, the kingmakers, they were
like, you call them kingmakers?
Like, these are the kingmakers. So it's like, okay, well, that's what's going to make you the subject matter expert, and that allows you to do something that we can't do. Like I tell people all the time, like I can't be LA, LA can't be me. Right. You have to walk in the room being who you are. Right. So to double back to your question, I was doing a lot of outreach that involved programming that targeted people who look like us, and then so on and so forth, consulting, doing marketing campaigns, whether you're talking All-Star Comedy Jam, whether you're talking Bill Bellamy, Crazy Sexy Dirty.
Let me tell you, can we pause for that right here? That is the funniest shit I've ever seen. Every time I get high, that's what I need to watch.
Right.
I'm trying to bring everybody in, and I'm dying. The Shamu bit, the whole, like, oh my God, that.
Well,
when I read that you were part of that, I was like, oh damn, that is so dope. That was a really great special. Even the way that you all filmed it and edited it out to be out there, that was dope. That was a really good comedy special.
So from that, I appreciate that. So from that, it then kind of had me, asking myself, okay, now that I have, this bandwidth, how can I expand that? And then more importantly, how can I go back to my point of origin? I myself went to an HBCU. So before HBCU outreach was the cool thing or the flavor of the day as it is now, because everybody is trying to figure out how they can ingratiate themselves in the HBCU community. We're talking many, many moons ago. Like it was only motivated by me wanting to represent them, making certain that they had a seat at the table, the HBCU community. So that's something that we're going back 6 or 7 years, and then it slowly begin to become a reality, realizing like how can we bring programming to these campuses, not only programming, but how can we present opportunities and a pathway to people who look like us, because I didn't have that. Like keep in mind, like I had to hitchhike my way into this game. So I didn't have a ride. So in order to have somebody get to their rightful destiny, I wanted to give them a vehicle. You can get from point A to point B if you have transportation a lot quicker than you can walking. So I spent many days walking and hitchhiking,
But there's people along the way that was willing to, be like, you know what? I see something in this guy. Let's give him a chance.
Absolutely. Well, trust me, again, God puts people in your path for various reasons. And that happened for me, being a member of a fraternity. And that helped me as far as my networking. A lot of people in my fraternity are in influential positions in entertainment. Right. And, just from just being in the fraternity, just being someone who isn't shy, as I'm sure you can tell. I know, right? So just through conversation, you would meet people, oh, you should talk to this person, you should talk to that person. So having enough, because a lot of times I think what holds us back too is us having a lack of humility. I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to do it my way. I don't need anyone's help. No, I knew early on. One of the things I realized, at the very beginning, I needed all the help I can get.
Right? It's true.
So it was people who begin to, open their arms to me and saying, okay, well, look, this guy has drive, determination, even though it's clear there's some things he needs to learn.
I mean, we all have to learn something.
Right. So, and I would say, looking back, like when I would go into these meetings and I would pitch projects, I'm thinking that I'm pitching the project. And I think looking back, I was actually pitching myself. So I got people to buy into who I was. And maybe they could see themselves in me and say, okay, I was that guy at one point in time.
Right.
And then,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and then I think what I also was very cognizant of is what I wanted to do is I wanted to make certain that they were fully aware of what my journey looked like. I think a lot of times we'll meet somebody and we won't maintain that relationship. With me, I've had relationships that extend 20 years. And I think over time, relationships can get people to fully understand who you are and then really appreciate your journey. So I have people that I communicate with. They remember when I was that guy with the sci-fi entertainment management company that didn't really exist.
I love it.
Right. And they go from that to where I'm at to where I am currently. They can fully appreciate it, and, so I was able to do that. And then I was able to watch many people's careers, unfold. So, I'm happy to say that it's been a tremendous journey. I still have, more miles to go, but I'm excited about our future.
Many rivers to cross. I hear you.
Absolutely. I'm gonna make sure the river doesn't freeze.
Right. Don't let it freeze. It sounds like mentoring played like a huge role. And I feel like you have taken that and now created your team based off. I feel like mentoring is a big part of how you built your team. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. Yes. So early on, having very little understanding of this business, it took people mentoring me. It took people who were where I wanted to go. They were already there. So, hey, I'm a manager in this business. This is what you want to do. So let me, lack of a better word, put you up on game.
Right. No, for real.
And then, so as time went on, and then the people who put me up on game, they continued to elevate.
Okay.
And then, so it worked for me. So I'm the kind of person, I believe in paying it forward. So whatever's worked for me, I'm going to try to present that to other people. So for me, like I realize and understand that there's not enough opportunities for people who look like us.
Right.
And so the same thing that I think happened for me, if I can see myself in someone, if I see someone has drive and determination, their expertise may not necessarily be what it may ultimately become, but you can't teach drive and determination. So if I see that in someone, I will kind of make it my business to kind of mentor them, give them some insight, give them some expertise, and then kind of see what they do with it. There's been a number of people, like I said, I jokingly call myself an opportunist because like I will present an opportunity to anyone, and it's a matter of what you're going to do with it. So I'll say to somebody, let's make money. These are the opportunities. These are the things that we can engage in and put the ball in the court and see what you do with it. If you don't shoot or drill, that's on you.
Yeah, no, so that's real.
So then that is another reason that led me to the HBCU outreach, because I'm like, okay, well, I want to mentor people in my age group and people who are like not as as far along in their careers myself, but then more importantly, I want to reach people who haven't even made it to the workforce. So let me go to some of these campuses and let them see someone like me and others who say, look, if I can do it, you can do it. You can't be what you can't. Oftentimes you can't necessarily be what you don't see. So how can I mentor and shepherd these individuals?
It's really funny that you say that, because here in Toronto, it's a very small, like only 1% of our population is melanated, let's just say. And so it makes it difficult for us to come together because we're almost like crabs in a bucket here. And so a lot of our mentorship happens across the border. And so potential films, much like our talent that goes to the US to become recognized, we even as business owners are now finding that we go to the States also to become empowered. And I love what you've been able to do with working with a Toronto-based company, Potential Films, Inc., headed by Sheldon Shaw and my boy Will. Shout out to Will and Sean. And, they're so hungry, those kids, right? Like, they're big men.
Right.
but they're hungry. And so the opportunity to have connected with you and what you were able to do for their documentary, can you speak a little bit about how that organically happened also?
Yeah, that was another example of something just presenting itself in ways that I wouldn't have ever anticipated. So I want to say Sheldon reached out to me, and this is why it's very important that people maintain a digital footprint.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like your flag, letting people know, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is how you can find me.
Right.
So I want to say Sheldon reached out to me on Twitter, and
Oh,
I'm rarely on Twitter.
No way.
And I rarely, that's why I say I believe, I think this was God working his, what he wanted to see happen. And he was at the center of all of it. I rarely look at my DMs, and Sheldon sent me a DM, and he was telling me what they were doing, and he'd already seen what I had done at that point as far as with my company, some of the projects I worked on. And I could tell he was younger, he was early on into his career. Yeah. And so we spoke on the phone, and I could tell he was hungry. And it was kind of like what I said before. I could see myself in him, and with his hunger and determination. Yeah. And whether I realized what I was doing at the time or not, I began to take on a mentorship role. Mentor him and kind of like create like some sort of a mentorship relationship, if I should say, as far as like how that manifested at. And saying, okay, well, Sheldon, I know you have this project. I know you have this documentary. These are some of the things you may want to consider. These are the things you may want to stay away from. And then, like I said before, he was able to heed that advice and be able to effectively implement it. Mm. So no matter what I shared with him, he was able to, bring it to fruition. Yeah. And that was impressive for me. So I said, okay, so this is a guy who had an idea for a documentary.
Right.
And ideas are like, we all have them.
I have plenty.
Right. So it's like, okay, so let's see what he's going to do with this idea. So then he was able to take his idea and bring it full circle. And you could tell that how he brought that idea full circle, he was heeding the advice that I gave him. Right. And then he was able to present a finished product that I could then do something with.
Right.
If he brought me chicken noodle soup, I can't serve that at Mr. Child's.
Hell no.
So he brought me something that I'm like, okay, this is something that we as a company can get behind. Let's partner on this documentary that was your baby, and let's take your baby to school. Right. And it worked. So we were able to strike a deal with, at the time it was UMC, which is now part of the AMC Networks family. Right. And, the rest is history. And he shared some of those same frustrations as far as how it is in Canada and how there's far few opportunities there than there are here. And you're right. Whether you're talking Drake, The Weeknd, the list goes on, people seem to have to come across the border to make full use of their talent. So I said, well, listen, more times than not, you're not going to be able to reinvent the wheel. So find out the direction in which the wheel is going and go in that direction. So that wheel brought him to Outspoken Media, and then we were able to take that programming and put it on a platform that's one of the premier streaming platforms in the country as it relates to capturing people who look like us.
That's amazing. And now Sheldon also works with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's my creative services director. So same thing, like, it happened organically. Like, I'm like, okay, yeah. So this kid, he reached out to me on Twitter. And then from reaching out to me on Twitter, we did this project. And I think he understands the power of relationships, because some people might have said, okay, you know what? He got me a bag. I'm out.
Right.
But he didn't. So he continued to, make full use of that mentoring relationship that we had cultivated and developed. And I said, well, you know what, Sheldon, there's a lot of things that you bring to the table that we could use internally.
Right.
And realizing that we've been around, and we have maybe more reach than what your company has at this point in time, because of like everything is a process,
and reciprocal.
Absolutely. Like, trust me, there are companies far bigger than mine, and it's levels to this. Right. So I said, well, listen, Sheldon, to make you a part of our team, it brings, added value for you as an executive, expertise. You're going to continue to surround yourself with other people who can serve in a mentoring role to you. who has, the background that extends sometimes in some instances beyond entertainment. Like I have people on my team who they've been on Wall Street for 20 plus years. I have another person on my team, Lorenzo Thomas. Shout out to Lorenzo I.C. Thomas. He's been in radio for 20 plus years. And, so now, your reach is going to expand by, coming into our, conglomerate, if you will. So
I love it.
He made full use of that opportunity, that opportunity we presented to him. Yeah. And, rest is history. We're excited to have him on board.
Yeah, he's done wonderful work in connecting myself with what I'm trying to do. So he's definitely on the come up, and I look forward to see where he's going with his career. And now, because he's with you, Outspoken will also climb to that same extent. I'm just going to shout out some of the people. Rose, that is so wonderful that you opened the door, but people have to do the work. Yes, absolutely. Hey, sis. Right. I think you're out in Oakland, you said. So big up to Oakland out there. We in here. Yeah.
That's Lorenzo. That's my boy. What up? Lorenzo I.C. Thomas holding it down from MIA.
Lorenzo, you're next. I'm gonna talk to you next. I'm gonna find out all about you because he's got some dope hip hop radio station that's a part of what you guys are all about. I mean, you just keep expanding, Terry. What does this long-term goal look like?
Look, we trying to take over.
I see that.
I mean, for me, straight up, I believe that the sky's the limit. And I think my mindset was cultivated by people such as Walter Yetnikoff and so on and so forth. Yeah. Who this guy at one point in time was like the biggest, like he was the most powerful music executive in the business. And to see how he would move and to see how he was able to just change the game, like whether you're talking music, television, film, like TriStar, all of that Sony Pictures. Right. There's a reason why it's Sony Pictures because he opened that door to say, okay, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to buy your music division, CBS. Then we're going to buy your television division. And we're going to buy your film division. He initiated all that. I mean, and we're talking $2 billion moons ago, and everybody's a Michael Jackson fan.
So crazy.
Well, he's the person who, was responsible for the success that Michael Jackson had. So I say all that to say, I really believe the sky's the limit because if that's your mentor and you see to what extent he was able to change the game from his vantage point, why can't we do the same? Like I believe if you can do it, I can do it. No matter who that person across from me is. I feel just as comfortable talking to Jamal from Uptown as I do Barack Obama.
I love it. Why not? I get you. I feel you. Right. Now, okay, I'm going to ask one question about your mentoring in relation to women. Women, they have a hard time sometimes navigating male dominant spaces. So what is your one piece of advice for women who are trying to navigate the entertainment industry within trying to, move up in their trajectory for success?
I would say the first thing that a woman has to do is command the room, and more importantly, command the respect of those in the room. Because you're right, unfortunately, sad but true. Whether we're talking women, whether we're talking people of color, we've all collectively been put in these marginalized positions. Yeah. So as a woman, you have to come to the table and you have to command that person's respect, and then more importantly, come to the table, show and improve, and let that person understand and realize what you bring to the table. Right. And no matter what that person's initial mindset may be, as it relates to, okay, I met this girl. Let's face it, we're men. So you meet a girl, she's pretty. She's saying, well, you're like, yeah. So what's your name again?
That's how it goes.
You have to understand that you have to move past that. You have to get him to focus on what you're talking about. Right. And what you do, what I've shared with a number of people over the years is the one thing that's transferable between men, women, black and white is money and how to make it. So if you come to me, no matter what the case may be, she's pretty, she's this, she's that. But once I see that there's an opportunity to make money, then they're going to be like, okay, there's money that can be made. How can we make it? And then once they realize you understand and speak their language, right? And I think the same holds true whether you're talking to a woman or a man like me of color. Absolutely. more times than not, the rooms I've walked into many moons ago, now that's probably not the case as much. But I'm sure when I walked in rooms 15 years ago, they probably seen me in a certain capacity. Like, okay, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, he's 15 years ago, he has a company, they've had some success, cool, but maybe, he's here today, gone tomorrow.
Right.
But since we've been able to stand the test of time, now with that, comes a level of respect.
Yes, your reputation.
Right. And I think the same could hold true for a woman.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so tell me a time where you actually had to compromise your values to make a deal go through.
Never.
Or you'll never tell.
No, never. Because for me, it's like, again, that's why you have to keep God, as at your center. He has to be the core in all your decision making, and you have to understand and realize, like, money isn't everything. As it says in the Bible, money's the root of all evil. So for me, like, I always wanted my reputation to precede me in a very favorable manner. Nice. And so if you compromise, and this is a very small business,
right?
So it's like, if you compromise your values, if you compromise who you are and your integrity, then not only am I going to walk away feeling less than, but that is going to spread like wildfire. Like, oh yeah, that guy, he's not a stand-up person. In order to get the deal closed, he was willing to do A, B, and C. And that person that you did that deal with, there's a level of respect he lost for you or she lost for you. Right. So for me, respect is very important. Like, you have to command the room. And even if you walk away from even if you walk out of that room with, not something that you may have come there to close a deal, and you walk out of that room having not closed that deal. But as long as you walk out of that room with your respect and, your reputation intact, then you close the deal. Because this is the relationship business. It's like, this business it's not predicated on deals. It's predicated on relationships. Okay. So if I can gain your respect, it won't just be me selling myself short for one deal. It's us breaking bread, over the next 10, 15, if not 20 years.
I love that. Okay, we're getting close to the end, so I just want to make sure that we talk about this. When I say the word Sasha, what comes up in your heart?
That's my little munchkin.
It's written all over your face. In fact, I think I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, that's my greatest gift. That's why, that's what motivates me. My daughter, and I that's the love of my life. The
love of your life. The only women would love to hear Terry L. Cyrus say that to them. Well, they can't be with Sasha.
Listen, that's my heart right there.
That's beautiful. Okay.
I ain't gonna get teary-eyed. Okay. I ain't gonna do it.
Well, she has her own show, and you're helping her, kind of transition into this industry. So, when you talk about supporting a woman and making sure her work precedes her, in a sense, you're already, you're making sure that that's intact.
Right. Yeah. I want her, she's 8 years old, and when she had a conversation with me about, and I'm sure she had no idea what she was saying. She was, I think at the time, 6. She was like, "Daddy, I want to be famous."
Oh, wow.
And I can remember, and it tapped into something inside me, because I can recall wanting to be famous at an early age, but being in West Virginia where being famous wasn't a realistic possibility.
Right, exactly. But for her.
Right. So for her, when she said that, it took me back to my childhood. And I'm like, you know what? Anything I can do to get her to understand and realize that if that's what you want, anything you want to do, and like the tagline in her little show, if you can dream it, you can achieve it.
All right.
And I wanted her to see at the ripe age of, I think we did our first episode when she was 7. I want her to understand and realize whatever you want to do, it doesn't have to be entertainment. It could be medicine. It can be education. It can be law. I want her to realize not only her, but all of her peers, with the children of tomorrow, the generation that's that's behind us, I should say Gen Z, because she's a part of that Gen Z
Yes.
demo. I want them to understand and realize that anything you want to do is possible. And I think a lot of times we put limitations on ourselves because, well, it's too difficult to do this. Well, I would like to be a doctor, but maybe I'm dyslexic. You can still be a doctor, or I would like to go into I would like to go into, let's say, the field of finance and become this big titan on Wall Street. But I may have certain limitations or whatever the case may be. Or for me, I want to go into entertainment, but it's the who you know business, and I don't know anybody.
Right.
So if you put in the work, if you put your best foot forward, and you allow God to guide you, and you find yourself walking in faith and purpose, anything is possible. So I want her to see that at her young age, because my dad and mother, they taught me so many lessons when I was growing up. One of the things my dad taught me, and this stuck with me to this day, and this is another one of my stalwarts. Like, if you start something, don't quit.
Right.
So
you start.
So for me, he told me that when I was probably Sasha's age. And my dad, he has like a real gruffy voice. He's like, "Boy, listen, you start something, like I say, if you start something, don't quit. I don't see what it is." So I was like, "Oh, okay."
Right. I'll listen.
Yeah. So my dad, that really stuck with me.
That's
okay,
beautiful.
whatever I start, whether it's a project, whatever I commit to, it may take me a while. It may take me 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. If I commit to something, I'm going to see it through. And it's not on my time, it's on God's time.
Right. That's the part, right? Patience is a big deal.
Patience is a big deal. And again, I think that, for me, just, watching our dialogue today, it could be someone that walks away saying, "You know what? Wow, something that LA said, something that Terry said, it stuck with me." Right. And that's why I do all of this. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm someone who doesn't need a lot. What I want to do and continue to expand the success of my company. I want to continue to empower people. I want to be able to say, hey, not only did I help myself and those around me, but I was able to influence, the masses, because me and others in this industry was about the change. There's so much change that needs to come about, socially, as it relates to, us as a people, culturally, and, a lot of the things that we're seeing today, unfortunately, it's like we're going back to the 60s during the civil rights era and things of that nature. So what I want to do is, like, how can we be about the change? And I think since we're in a capitalistic society, then we need to inherit some capital.
Right.
If we want to really make some real change. So if I can be at the forefront of that and surround myself with individuals who have that same mindset,
right,
I'm here for it.
I love it. I love it. Shout out to Dobie Chick and Sheldon, who was just saying, "What up? We see you out there." After everything we've just talked about, Terry, what would you say now are you realizing about how your desires have shown up in your life? Like that thing that you were yearning for when you were younger, to be famous, whatnot. Hey, Charles, right on. I love all my Los Angeles people.
Right. LA. Yeah.
LA's in the house. Literally.
Right.
But what are your desires telling you about who you are and how you show up in life?
I just think that my desire, both professionally and personally, is I'm someone who, I'm big on commitment. If I commit to something, I'm big on giving someone my word. My word is my bond. And, walking in my purpose. I want to lead by example. There's a lot of different problems, as we know, in life. We face them on a day in, day out basis. But rather than harp on the problem, I want to be a part of the solution. And I want to show people that if you find your purpose, then anything is possible. I think a lot of times we go through life, just accepting what our reality is. Hey, I've always wanted to do A, B, or C, but circumstances has prevented me from doing that. So I'm going to just accept whatever I see to be, like life as I know it. Like I want people to understand and realize like you only have one life. You have to live it to your fullest. And I want someone to have that mindset in the boardroom as well as on the block. I want people to realize like, listen, if I want to do something, what's stopping me? The only person stopping you is the person in the mirror.
Right.
So I'm big on, I ask people all the time, like, what's your purpose? Find your purpose. A lot of people don't know. What's your purpose?
Then I talk to Sheldon about this all the time. I talk about potential because, his company name.
Right.
And I was like, we all have potential to do a lot of things, which is great for his company because he's able to facilitate all of those potentials for those people.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to his own purpose, Jesus had lots of potential, but he had a purpose for his life.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we want to zero in on. And I think that's what it seems like you're doing. You can do many things, but your underlying purpose is what you are manifesting, that diversity and representation, your integrity, your intention to embrace difference in representation of purpose. Everyone is different and has a unique thing to bring to the table. And that is what you're facilitating through your mentoring and that's how your whole company is building. And now you're able to even give this and pass it on to your daughter. So it's generational for you. Mm-hmm. That's how you know that you are leaving legacy in this world. So Absolutely. What is it that you still thirst for though? Is there something that you are still thirsty as fuck for?
That's a good question.
I was waiting for you to say that to me.
I stay hydrated.
Oh yeah. Well, all of your successes are hydrating you, but there's still a part of you that's like you're thirsty as fuck for it. Do you know what it is?
You know what? I think the thing that may have eluded me to date is I think the picket fence, the wife and kids and all those kind of things. I have my daughter. That's the center of my life. But I think a lot of sacrifices that I had to make impeded my personal development, I should say.
Right. You're not dead yet.
Right, yeah, I'm not dead, right. You know what I'm saying? So I'm still a relatively young man.
Yeah, you are. And if black don't crack, you're still looking good.
Yeah, like my sister said, it may not crack, but it possibly may crumble. Hope they're not crumbling.
Definitely not. That smile is gold. You're gonna get very far.
So I think, my dad's always said, oh boy, he has that voice. Oh, you need to find a wife, you need to settle down. And I'm like, I'm open to all of those possibilities, but right now I'm just focused on what it is I'm building and my purpose. And, just leading by example, with my peers and more importantly, my daughter. I want my little baby girl to feel like, she just started the third grade today.
Oh, wow.
She started the third grade. So I want her to walk in that classroom like, all right, I'm the leader of the new school. I want her to have that level of confidence. I want her to have that, that mindset that anything is possible. And, I hear her now. My daddy's a CEO, so I'm going to be a CEO.
I love it.
My daddy does this, so I'm going to do that. Children don't, they learn by what they see, not what they hear.
Exactly.
So that's what inspires me. And again, I moved through life, LA, organically. So whatever is for me is for me. That's why, I don't hate on what someone else has. Oh, someone may have, a beautiful family and they may have this and that, or they may have just closed a multi-million-dollar deal with whatever studio, or they may have secured a contract with some big brand to lead their campaign, outreach, etc. Like, I applaud all of that because at the end of the day, what's for me is for me. And it'll find me as long as I put myself, in the on that path as it pertains to purpose, and I do nothing to block my own blessings.
Right.
So whatever's for me is for me. What God has for you is for you, and what He has for me is for me. So all I can do is just be ready to receive it.
Just be ready to receive, because that's how He wants us to be. And when we reflect and discern that relationship that we have with God, we are able to have what we want. It does just make itself known to us. And I love that. Terry, how do people get into contact with you moving forward?
You can always follow me on Instagram at Cyrus the CEO. I'm on Facebook. You can just probably Google my name, Terry L. Cyrus. The same holds true for LinkedIn. If you want to reach the company, we're 212-500-0840. If you want to send us an email, info@outspokenmedia.net. I'm also on Twitter, how Sheldon found me.
When you check the DMs.
Right, we check the DMs. Shout out to all of the people who leave DMs.
Right.
That's Cyrus the CEO. Also, our company Instagram is Outspoken Media Group. And then, we have our HBCU initiative, HBCU Cinema Experience. We're on Instagram. You can also find us on Twitter. And I think our Twitter handle is it's HBCU Cinema EXP. Because Twitter, they give you like a limited what you can say. Yeah. So that's our title. That's our handle on Twitter for HBCU Cinema EXP, and then Outspoken Media on Twitter as well. So I welcome all new opportunities. I'm always here for whatever conversation, no matter what stage you are in your career development, whether you're in the classroom or you're new to the workforce, or maybe even if you're transitioning out of a long career, having done something that you may not necessarily have wanted to do, but it served a purpose. You might say, okay, well, look, I worked at the post office for 20 some odd years, or that person may say I'm a school teacher, or whatever the case may be, but I've always wanted to be an author. I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to do that. I think in life, it's a relay race. And I think a lot of times people, they tend to allow themselves to be defined by what they find themselves doing. That doesn't necessarily represent your purpose. That just represents, what you find yourself doing. That may just be your oxygen for the moment. You can still be an author and work at the post office. You can still be an author and, work in any other capacity, so it's a matter of finding your purpose and not letting the devil steal your joy and robbing you of your destiny.
I love it. Thank you so much for being my first guest on the Cocktale Hour. It was great to have you.
Hey, you know what? I enjoyed myself, and shout out to the Cocktale Hour. Shout out to you, LA. You're doing phenomenal things, from, across the border, and I'm sure, your reach is reverberating, as we can see from, we are the north in Toronto all the way to the West Coast, and me in the New York metropolitan area. Right. Shout you out. Shout out to all the parties involved. I'm excited to be your inaugural guest on Cocktale Hour. I'm more than happy to come back. I'm more than happy to have a number of my team members.
I love it.
That I think would also have a lot to say and share from their vantage point, their career perspective. So
I love it. I look forward to future conversations then. Relationship.
Absolutely. That's what it is. It's about a relationship. I love
it.
I'm here for it.
Thank you so much. I just want to remind people that Business Takeout is a not-profit social enterprise, and our mission is to increase Black wealth and empower Black entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for watching the Cocktale Hour. We will see you next Monday at 5 p.m. And you know what? A little bit of thirst is a good thing. So stay thirsty.
Facts.
If you enjoy our programming and want to help support Black entrepreneurship, please donate today. www.businesstakeout.com/donate.